Welcome, everybody, to the Glaziar Gamble podcast. For those listening, this is just going to be a quick episode for our sports section today because there isn't too much for us to talk about. Maybe we'll do our just draft special or something next week. Otherwise, this is just going to be a quick one to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. For those watching on YouTube, this is probably just going to end up being just a Timberwolves clip. That's all we have to talk about today is Minnesota Timberwolves. So if you're not interested in Timberwolves, we'll see you next week. Minnesota Timberwolves, they played their play-in game.
Yep.
To get into the playoffs. We talked about that last week. We talked about how said if we go against the Clippers, I'm nervous. Go against any of the other teams, I felt confident.
Sure.
But the Clippers were just red hot, and they matched up with us well. And after watching...
they beat us 3 out of the 4 times this season.
Those 3 wins were all within the first 3 months of the season.
And
the one loss was after the All-Star game.
Yeah.
So it was most recent.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Like, people are talking about the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Timberwolves now. And the Timberwolves, the losses are all within single digits, and the wins are all the Wolves. That when the Wolves lost, it's within single digits, and when they've won, it's been double digits.
Yeah, like against Memphis.
Yeah,
we blew them out by like 41 games. So.
Yeah. So we have a really good point differential, which means, like you said, anybody listening or watching, give credit to Joe. He said if we go up against Memphis, it's going to be a 7-game grueling.
Here's another fun
series.
Fact. Season averages for points scored. Timberwolves are number 1. Memphis is number 2. Gonna be a lot of high octane offenses, a lot of excitement.
Watch the average score be like 90 to 84.
Yeah, like the Clips game wasn't that much in comparison. Like the over under was like 231 points or something like that, and it dropped like halfway through, it was like 218, and then by the end it was like 210 or something like that.
This was the one team I thought we'd lose to, or I thought it was the highest chance to lose to, was the Clippers.
Sure.
Early in the game was not looking great, especially with Cat.
They got Cat had a rough one.
Probably worst game of his career.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying like Cat didn't show up, blah, blah, Cat sucks, blah blah blah. It's the Clippers did everything in their power, including double teams, triple teams, to stop Cat from getting going. They did that. They weren't going to let Cat beat us. You know, they frustrated him to the point of they let other people take over the game. They wide open threes. They gave us wide open looks. Ant and D'Lo could basically do whatever they want.
And they were both hitting shots.
Right. Yeah, their D'Lo, when D'Lo gets in this, like, I don't know how to explain it besides this, like, smooth butter phase where he's just, like, he's cooking a guy and he does this little step back and you know what's going in. You just can tell.
So with D'Lo, would it be considered an ice check instead of a heat check, like a cold check?
I think so. Because, like, after he scored, like, 6 points in a row and then the Clippers had to call a timeout and he did his little, like, arm wave thing, like pointing, like he's about to do the freaking this thing, so he's like waving his arm. So I was like yeah, they shut down Cat fouled out with 7 minutes and 42 seconds left in the game, and the rest of the team showed up.
After Karl Anthony Towns fouled out, the Wolves went on like a 26-7 run.
We Paul George hit some crazy threes, just boom, 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 boom. And so I was like, all right, they're not out of it yet.
Which is what we wanted. We wanted Paul George to show up because we like PG.
Yeah, no, it was fun to see. We did the same thing to like their players too. Like Reggie Jackson, we were kind of like in his head too, like he's in foul trouble. But there was a lot of fouls, a lot of free throws, and the Wolves did an amazing job with McDaniels and Vanderbilt. One of those long, tall, lengthy defenders was always on Paul George. Jaden McDaniels was even on Reggie Jackson too. No, the Wolves did good. It was a fun game to watch. I was sitting on my TV watching the game, just cheering my ass off because it was fun.
The Greg Monroe signing is gonna see a lot of time against the Grizzlies.
Yeah,
I think Vando's gonna get a ton of minutes, and Greg Monroe's gonna get the other minutes.
Yeah,
they got big bodies. Ja likes to drive. He does most of his damage in the paint. Not the best shooter, so he drives a lot. He gets a lot of his assists from driving dish.
Sure.
Jaren Jackson is just a beast down low. We need the big bodies this game. I don't think McDaniels can handle Jaren Jackson as well as Vanderbilt can.
Yeah, they're probably gonna be on like Ja most of the time, I'd imagine.
I think McDaniels is probably gonna cover Ja a lot, and then I think Vando and Cat will be Jaren Jackson and Steven Adams, and then help.
Ant also last Memphis game when we beat them, he covered Ja a lot. So.
And Patrick Beverly when guarding Ja Morant one-on-one, Ja Morant averages less than 10 points.
Yeah. So we got a lot of people that can switch in pick scenarios, which I think helps. So yeah, I'm excited. The big thing after the Wolves won, they were celebrating the packed stadium. Everyone was happy. Pat Bev was running around. Basketball means a lot to him. They were getting clowned. The Wolves were getting clowned on social media and even TNT by Charles and Shaq and
including Ja Morant.
Yeah,
Ja Morant also mocked them.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's one of those things where like, as Wolves fans, we hit the low point where we're like the losingest franchise
in sports, not just NBA, in sports.
Yeah. So I don't know if we are now because we've obviously had a good season, but
that's the thing is the team that the second worst in 2020 was when they became the lowest. The team that they surpassed for worst was the Bucks right before the Bucks got Tom Brady. So the Bucks have been winning a lot too.
Sure.
And so I don't, if they did drop out of first, that means they probably surpassed somebody else, but the other team was the Bucks. So I'm not sure who the other team would be.
Right. I was like Bucks. I was like Giannis. I was like Kareem. Wait.
The Buccaneers.
It's the second time, like people don't realize it's the second time we've made the playoffs in almost 20 years. They're posting act like you've been here before or something like that, right? And then it shows before. And it's like a picture of our starting lineup. And it's Luke Ridnour, Alexei Shved, Kirilenko, Love,
Pekovic. Yeah. The white lineup.
Yeah. So we haven't been here that often.
Right. And like the Wolves, they went through Sebastian Telfair phase. They've gone through some of the worst stuff. Yeah. Not to mention Cat lost so many family members over this past couple of years. Too. We lost the Flip Saunders, and they were talking on the radio about how much Flip would love this team.
Yeah.
And like this is all a team that looks like Flip players.
Yeah.
Not to mention Chris Finch has done a great job.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations, Chris Finch. I still remember the time when Damian Lillard came out saying Chris Finch shouldn't have been hired. Just remember that when Chris Finch got hired, Damian Lillard said he shouldn't have been hired.
Was it JB Bickerstaff or something like that?
Yeah, he said that he shouldn't have been hired because they should have given the opportunity to a candidate of color.
Yeah,
and they said that they didn't want Chris Finch hired, and then Damian Lillard was upset at his own hiring. He was upset with Chauncey Billups, who happens to be black.
Right.
He upset at that, and then Chris Finch takes his team to the playoffs when it's like, you know what, maybe these GMs getting billions of dollars know what they're doing sometimes.
Right.
I'm so happy for this team. And the last time the Wolves made the playoffs, since you mentioned that, they happened to be a team that we did not want to root for. Nobody liked Jimmy Butler when he was here.
Yeah.
He was more drama than anything else. Like we understood how good he was,
right?
But just because somebody's good doesn't mean it's easy to root for him. If you take out that year, there hasn't been a team worth rooting for. The last time a team was worth rooting for was Levine, Wiggins, Cat, and it was all young potential. And then they brought in Tibbs, and he just destroyed the whole team.
Yeah. For that, it was 2005 season, I think. So it's been 18 seasons of basketball it's been terrible basketball to the point where they thought that A-Rod was buying the team to relocate. That's the situation the Wolves were in before the season. This is a team. This is going to be the Seattle Supersonics next year. Karl Anthony Towns will be a Seattle Supersonic. Right.
That's where it was. And they went from that to making the playoffs, not as an 8 seed, not just squeaking in. They're a 7th seed.
Right.
I don't know. I was really upset because there's so much. You tweeted about how it's so much deeper than just sports fandom. When you make fun of a team, when you make fun of their fans, when you make fun of specific players, people always forget, mainly because it's the internet, mainly because their opinion is just able to be screamed into the void and they never have to deal with any repercussions.
Sure.
There's so much more to this than just a game. Like
Right.
Patrick Beverley wouldn't react that way if this was just basketball.
Right.
He gets pride in the fact that he's never not made the playoffs.
Right.
So he was going to do anything he could. He was going to play his defense as hard as he could. He was going to get a technical foul maybe here or there if it meant.
He did get one.
Exactly. He's going to get those in order to make sure that the game goes the way he wants it to go. Karl Anthony Towns is going to play with his parents, with his family in mind. You make fun of Cat when you make fun of him having a poor game. You make fun of him celebrating making into the playoffs. You're making fun of people that have passed on.
Right.
You make fun of some of these rookies. This is a young team that a lot of these guys have never even made the playoffs before.
Right.
You're making fun of guys that this has been their dream since they were in high school, making the playoffs. They obviously want to win a championship, but in order to win a championship, you have to get to the playoffs.
Right.
If you make a list of like a to-do list, we'll simplify it. Cleaning your house. You have a list of 6 things. You got to vacuum, dishes, all this stuff. You're telling me you don't feel good as each one? You don't feel good until all are done? Right. I feel good once the dishes are done, knowing I only have 5 things left. Then I vacuum. Now I only have 4 things left. Each one of those things feels good.
Right.
Made it past the regular season in the play-in. Feels good. Made it out of the play-in as the top seed you can get in the play-in. Feels good. Now, winning each series is the next thing on the list. So once it's all said and done would be the championship. So they're just celebrating on their way. It's not like they're going to be so caught up in celebration that it's going to ruin them.
Yeah. They're and another thing is they were celebrating with the fans, which not a lot of fan bases really do. It's like, oh, we're gonna celebrate winning a championship, and it's like our team did it. It's like your fans are part of your team too. Yeah, the fact that they were signing shirts and throwing jerseys and armbands and stuff into the stands. They were celebrating with the people there.
If that was any other team, anybody listening or watching, if that was your team, you'd be happy.
Yeah.
You'd be happy for them. If not, you really don't care about them as players.
Right.
They're just if you weren't excited for them as a fan, and you're saying act like you've been there, it's not over until you win the ship. If you really feel that way, these guys are just objects to you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you'd be fine trading any of these guys. You don't feel a connection to any of them. You don't care because that's not what it's about to you. It's just it's for the city. Well, I mean, each of these players represent you.
But I mean, sports mean a lot to different people. When I was watching the bring up a hard memory, but Blair Walsh's kick, I was physically sick to my stomach for like 3 hours after that. I
couldn't believe it.
Like I went and I like laid down for an hour and a half, and my girlfriend at the time was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't feel good. Like I'm sick." I mean, it means different things to different people. So
not to tear open another vein, but we mentioned this on Twitter. You mentioned this on Twitter.
Right.
For those listening or watching, they don't know, Joe's dad passed away when he was living with me a few years back. Basketball is so when I think football, I think of my dad. That's like the first person I think of. He was my coach, all that sort of thing. When I think basketball, both Joe and I think of Joe's dad. I think of Joe's dad is like he's the first person I think of.
Right.
He was an assistant coach for me at one point, but I used to spend all the time at Joe's house when growing up. Joe lived with us for a while, but we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
I think of your dad all the time.
Right.
When the Wolves play, he's the first one in my mind.
Sure.
I was mad when people were mad at the Wolves because I thought I was like, this is so much more this is because I thought this is not making fun of your dad directly, but it's in a way he's mocking your dad's passing on.
I would always call my dad on the way home from work, driving back to your place where we were. I would always call him. I'd sit out in my car for 10-15 minutes after I got home, just finishing the conversation or whatever, but I would always talk basketball with my dad.
Yep. And when he'd come home from work and you and I would be playing games at your place.
Yeah.
He'd either bring up the Twins or he'd bring up the Wolves, usually the Wolves, and he'd say he'd mention, he wouldn't say hello, he wouldn't do anything. He'd either make a joke to start out.
Yeah, he was funny.
Or he was super funny. My dad always says that. He's like, he was one of the funniest guys I knew.
Yeah.
He would come in and he would just say what'd you think of this? That would be the first thing out of his mouth. But what'd you think of Rubio's pat? What'd you think of this? And it'd be like, oh, well, this is what we thought. And he'd just immediately jump into basketball. So
Right.
I'm always amazed by people that say like they're not really that interested. Like they like sports, but they're not that invested. Like it's so much more. And I
Right.
couldn't be the Wolves could get
Yeah.
swept by Memphis, and I couldn't be happier.
Right.
Like
You have to
this team
take
has
the-
potential now. Like
Yeah.
we've always talked this way about the Wolves. Every year it's like this is a year we can make the playoffs, and we're always optimistic and biased and all that. This year we were all just genuine, like this team could do it. People were like, there's way.
always the seeing the Wolves in a positive light, even when that positive light is a very dim light bulb covered with a bunch of black sheets and stuff. But that we've always kind of talked like that. So
Right.
I mean, we're a little bit more critical on the Vikings. Just there's less room for error. You know, there's
It's
82
easier to
basketball
judge
games.
a 53-man roster than a 5-man starting lineup.
Yeah, so I mean, there's also 82 games in the season rather than 17. So it's like there's less margin for error. Like you can lose a game in the NBA and still be all right, but one game can make the difference in the playoffs for that. Yeah, even in the like Luke Ridnour, Alexi Shved, Kirilenko, Love, and Pekovic days, like Love was starting to come into his own. He wasn't quite like the only person on the team. And Pekovic at the time, when healthy, was like a top 2, top 3 offensive center. Like nobody could stop him. The rest of the team was dog water, but you know, we still stood behind him.
Yeah. I mean, I remember rooting for Alexis Fed. He'd shoot it from half court
Yeah.
for no reason.
Yeah.
He hadn't made a 3 all game, and he'd
Yeah.
pull up from half court, and we'd just be like, come on, like, go in.
Yeah, then he had the one Knicks game where he just tore apart Madison Square Garden. So like 34
They
points.
say that's where
something like
superstars are made.
that.
That night, superstar Alexis Fed. That team, see, like, that's the team everybody keeps bringing up, but there's so many more
There's
terrible
worse
teams and terrible
teams,
lineups.
yeah.
There's worse teams, and I mean, Chase Budinger
Yeah.
was such a disappointment too. He never was healthy when he played for us.
Right.
Kevin Martin, everybody's like, he was good for the Wolves. He's like, but did it do? He didn't. He was overpaid and did nothing. And then they were paying his contract for like 6 years.
He took a lot of bad shots. He could score, but on the volume of shots he got, it was I don't know.
Weird ass shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many terrible teams that we had to root for, that now with this team it feels like we get to root for.
Right.
Like you hadn't back then it was just, you know, it felt like a right, like, okay, we just have the right to root for this team. Now it's like a privilege. We get to root for this team, and it feels good.
Yeah. Like the way the roster's constructed too, each of the top, like there's top 8 people, say, like you can really get behind, whereas like the other parts of the units, it's like they're not yet established. They're still learning the NBA and stuff.
Only the fans really know much about them.
Nas Reed is one of those guys where it's like Nas Reed, Jalen Noel, you know, they're the kind of guys that are like, they're still kind of learning and they don't really know their role, I guess, as the backup. So, but like all the other ones, it's like they know what they're doing. Like they know what they're doing. They're super fun to get behind. Like Beasley hitting a corner 3 right before the third quarter went off. Like it was a buzzer beater. Like I was like, yeah, like
yeah.
Like every time Beasley shoots it, you're like, come on. Like every time, like if he goes in, if one goes in, like he could add 9 more points just like that.
And that's part of it too. Is like Beasley was let go by a different team.
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell's been traded by multiple teams.
Right.
Patrick Beverley traded, cut. Like we got guys that want to make a point and prove. We got those guys that they've drafted. So you have guys that's like you didn't want them and now they're succeeding here. So that feels good. And then you got guys like we drafted you and now you're developing. That feels good.
Like Ant and Jaden,
like when Nas had those couple games last year, he went from being a G League player to a 2-year contract guy. It just felt really good. I mean, I felt that way about Gorgie as well, but he never kept developing.
Yeah.
I really wanted to keep Bielitsa. He's doing well where he is. There are those guys that I still wish we had. But this team is so fun to root for. I like, so sticking like with the series, I like Memphis. I like the way they play. I like their players. I thought Ja was the number 1 overall pick over Zion. I thought Zion, it was the pick you make to make money. Ja's the pick you make to win.
Right.
I love Steven Adams. We wanted Steven Adams. Grizzlies got him. We both wanted him. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is underrated. I think he's better than a star. Like people say he's star, not superstar yet.
Sure.
If there's a middle ground there, I'd put him there. I think he's super underrated. Tyus Jones is the cog that makes their bench run. He broke the NBA record for assist to turnover ratio previously held by him.
Yeah.
And there was a series of games where he ended up having an insane, like never heard of before assist to turnover ratio when he was starting. He's one of those guys I wish we still had, but I root for him and watch him. He's from Minnesota.
Sure.
I've also always respected their fans because they've been respectful, and I lost some of that respect after the Clippers game and the Memphis Grizzlies fans started talking shit. Sure. I probably would still have that respect if Twitter didn't exist.
Too.
What was
Kuzma tweeted too. Like the Wolves just won the chip. Like
yeah, and John Morant tweeted a whole bunch of laughing faces, and people were talking like just a bunch of players and guys were talking shit, and it's like why?
Yeah.
it's like that thing about that teacher that solved 9. They did 10 math problems, and they got 9 correct and the last one wrong, and then the class laughed at them and then he pointed out, but I got 9 right. Why are you pointing out the one I got wrong?
Right.
And it's basically a perfect example. Like the society basically has a focus. Twitter especially is hyper focused on analyzing the negative because feeding off the negativity makes a lot of other people feel good. This is one of those things. We don't celebrate accomplishments anymore. We laugh at failures.
Yeah.
So when people celebrate their accomplishments, they're told to stop. Act like you've been there before. But then they turn around and they say, the NFL stands for no fun league because they don't allow touchdown celebrations. But I thought you're supposed to act like you've been there before.
Yeah.
So pick a side. Do you want them to not celebrate when they score a touchdown? Do you want them to just set the ball down every time? Do you want teams to celebrate when they make it into the playoffs after 20 years? Or do you want them to just be like, okay, on to next week?
Yeah, like what if the fans were just like, the fans left with like 2 minutes left. They're like, oh yeah, we won.
We won.
Let's go get out of the city before.
Let's go get a beer. Yeah, I don't want. Let's miss traffic. I don't care. No, I'd be there until, just like when you and I got kicked out after a loss because we were there too late. Yeah. I would have been there to the point where the cops again would have come up to us and be like, "You guys gotta leave."
Yeah, yeah. It's just a crushing loss.
This is so. We went through those Timberwolves teams that were good and yet gave up, like the Sam Mitchell coach teams. Yeah. Those were good. A lot of those were good teams.
Missed shots.
Missed shots. Like there was one game you and I went to where Damian Lillard ended the game. It was without of reach. It was like 20 point. They were losing by 20. The Trailblazers were. So the Wolves literally just let Damian Lillard get a free layup 4 or 5 times down the court and brought it within 10 points before the game was finished.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, timeout, score, timeout, score, timeout, score. And the fans started like booing the fans that were left because they were like, do something. Yeah. Who cares if the game's over? Do something. That team was good, beat the Trailblazers that game, and we were upset as fans because it was like, you just let Damian Lillard get a free 12 points at the time as the time ran out with layups. Yeah. Nobody got in his way. Nobody tried to stop him from driving. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen at a basketball game. It looked like he was doing layup lines, and the Timberwolves were like, all right, go ahead, do it again. Go ahead.
We just want to waste time because times are factor.
We're just trying to keep the win, not like make sure we win. It was dumb. Make sure you lose. We're just gonna hold on to our win.
We didn't play to win. We played not to lose.
And that's the consistency with most Minnesota sports teams.
Yeah.
I guess my last thing is, I don't care if we lose. I want to win. I think Wolves in 7 is what I would like. After before the series started, I said I think the Wolves could win in 5 realistically. Just being trying to remove my bias, truly understanding how great the Grizzlies have been this year. I think Wolves in 7 wouldn't be unrealistic.
I think that implies that we got to win 1 on the road. So if we can split one of the first 2 games in Memphis, I think we'd be on the path to victory, because I think the Target Center and the familiarity that the players have playing there, I think that would be the catalyst to push them over the top and give them the momentum they need. So I think if they split one of the first 2, they're very momentum based. So I mean, if we could get that first one, it could just be a clean sweep, I guess. But
it's really about, can we match up physically?
Yeah.
Just like the Grizzlies of the past with Zebo and those guys.
Right.
Could you match up with them physically? This is a very similar built team, which is why I've always respected Memphis. It's just the way they play. It kind of represents the city a lot. It's just a tough city. I think they play tough.
They're built kind of similarly to the Clippers. They got a very quick, athletic point guard. Like Reggie Jackson is like 33, but he can still move really fast. They got 3-point shooters everywhere, and they got some bigs down low. So, it's going to be on Cat to like. There was a stretch in the fourth quarter where Cat wasn't scoring, but he was in the right spot to offensive rebound. He was playing good defense. I'm like, Cat, this is all you have to do this game. Like, you don't have to score. You just need to do other things to help your team win. And he was just so hyper focused on like getting points, where it's like
he kept missing.
You didn't need to. You just need to rebound and play defense.
You got a prediction?
I'm gonna pick the Wolves just because I'm optimistic, even if I think Memphis is probably better. I'd like to win the first game to kind of just make Grizzlies fans go, oh shit, for a sec.
Oh man, these guys actually are good.
Yeah, and then but I'd probably say Wolves in 6, because then it would be back home for that 6th game. And I think that'd be pretty electric.
I agree. And then we'd celebrate again, even harder.
Yeah.
I don't have too much else to say other than, if you're still going to be rude to the Wolves, you can suck it at this point. And if you don't understand, if you listen to everything we just said and still feel like you have to be aggressive and negative, just go suck it while touching grass. I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you.
Stood up for us. They're like, when did we get to the point where celebrating accomplishments is a bad thing? Like,
who was that?
JJ Redick.
Yeah.
He's
so all year we heard about all these former players loving JJ Redick's podcast and his opinion and all that sort of thing. But now, do they agree with his opinion, or now that they disagree with what he's saying?
He's emotional. He's like, it's fucking stupid. He's like, I'm fucking done talking about it. Like, they deserve to celebrate. They made it once in the last 20 years. Like,
you're gatekeeping on winning.
Yeah.
You're gatekeeping winning. Winning isn't good enough. You have to win the correct games.
Yeah.
You can't just win. You have to win the right game. But if you support it, and if we even convinced one person to change their mind and understand why sports means more to some people.
Welcome to the Glaziar Gamble family. Welcome to the Timberwolves organization.
Well, yeah, even if you're not a Wolves fan, if you came here because you were aggressive and mad and you wanted to come shit on us for having this opinion, and then you decided, okay, maybe they have a point, even if you're not fully convinced, you're appreciated, and thank you for listening, because this wasn't meant to be like a retaliate anger and negativity with anger and negativity. This was meant to remind people. Like when you watch those videos of the special needs kid allowed onto the court and gets to take a shot and everybody cheers.
Yeah.
That's sports for people. You get to see the random proposal at halftime. You get to see the person, they act like something happened, and then their soldier dad or husband comes home. They turn around and it's them. Why would they do that at a sports game if sports didn't mean more to some people? That was all this reminder was. The sports mean more to a lot of people. If sports don't mean that much to you, then don't share your opinion, because if sports aren't more than just sports to you, then there's no reason to talk to other people. Otherwise, you're making it more than about sports by making fun of them anyway. Go Wolves. Wolves up. Wolves Nation. All eyes north, whatever it is.
Something like that. All eyes north. I think so.
Yeah.
I got a shirt with that on it.
Thank you all
Power of
for
the pack. We've done something like that. We've done that.
Yeah. I don't know what it is this year. Run with the pack. Go Cat. Go Pat Bev. Go D'Lo. Go Ant. Go McDaniels. Go Vanderbilt. Go Nas. Go Greg Monroe. Go Beasley. Go McLaughlin. Go Noel.
Layman. Knight. Right.
Yeah. We're rooting for you. And if you want to celebrate after every single win like that, go for it. Just do it. And if other people celebrate like that when they beat you, be okay with it. See you guys next week. GG.